Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you to this 8th Leader Plus conference. I am sure we will use the opportunities of these 2 days to exchange experience and ideas on leader. I wish you all and myself a very successful conference. Thank you. So we're going with the video message of Mrs. Marianne Fischer-Böll.
It's a great pleasure for me to send this message to the final conference of the Leader Community Initiative. Èvora is a very inspiring setting in which to think about what our rural communities can offer. I very much wish I could be there in person. Over the years, the Leader approach has proven its worth in so many ways. It has shown that when we hand power to local people in rural communities, they respond. Once they no longer have to sit about waiting for someone else to solve their problems and give them ideas from above, so often there's a huge release of energy. They take charge of their own development. They come up with the ideas. They plan and negotiate with program authorities. Leader has also shown that diverse partnerships can work, and I'm always impressed to see how good Leader projects get people from the public and private sector together around a table in local action groups, focusing their minds on a common goal. Finally, Leader has shown that reaching out across regional and national boundaries has huge value. When leader groups talk to each other across these boundaries, they find that their successes and problems aren't unique. They compare notes, they learn from each other. Life becomes so much easier when you don't have to reinvent the wheel. All these features make Leader one of the success stories of the European Union. It has delivered jobs. It has delivered improvements to the natural environment. It has delivered new services. So all in all, it has made people's lives better. And it has brought local people together, helping them to help themselves through new ideas and new forms of partnership. It has become a given in grassroots rural development. All of this makes it right to congratulate everyone who has been involved with Leader so far. Leader is moving on. It has joined the mainstream of the European Union's rural development policy, so that all national and regional rural development programs will have a little more of a Leader flavor. It has a big role ahead of it as the European Union faces up to new challenges. I'm confident of that. But Leader can fulfill its potential only if the voices of those involved are clearly heard. So the Commission is happy to listen to your views on the best ways to take the success of the Leader approach forward into the future. I wish you all a very successful meeting.
Mr. José Ernesto de Oliveira, Mayor of Èvora.
Leader program has been quite important for our region and city. It has helped some lines of development grounded on our rural world to gain momentum following a modern and competitiveness line of development. And the rural community has been benefiting from this program together with the very city of Èvora itself. I hope that you feel in Èvora as if you were in your very own home city. So welcome, have a nice day, and thank you very much for your presence.
And now may I ask Mr. João Simão de Carvalho, Directeur Général de l'Agriculture et Développement Rural, to introduce the Leader Initiative in Portugal.
It is a general impression of those in charge of different countries. All, as I said, believe that maturity was gained, and together with this, the level of accountability has also increased, and our challenges are important. The leader approach for rural development accounts for 85% growth, involving 3.9 million persons. We will do our utmost to set the difference in our territories. Our territories have a lot to deliver, and they are delivering it thanks to your commitment. As a Portuguese member of state, I would like to welcome you all. Thank you very much.
I now would like to give the floor to Mr. Jorge Manuel de Oliveira Pinto, who's president of a local action group, Monte.
As the Commissioner said in the message that she kindly sent to us, that the Commission had dared to hand in the power to civil society, and we're here to reflect on that society, to actually reflect in detail what has been done and well done to improve on the problems that we've had, because I think that the experience of the gals throughout Europe has been a great one, and I think that it is most opportune for us to reflect especially on the future, because we are close to the agents of micro-initiatives. We are capable to maintain and increase the quality of life amongst rural population, which are an integral part of our societies. That is our contribution. That is the reflection that I ask of you, so that in the next Leader Plus, we will indeed have good, strong legs to progress onwards. Thank you and welcome.
Yes, and now it is for Josephine Loritz-Hoffmann, Head of Unit in DG Agriculture, to speak about the role of leader.
I have the pleasure to talk to you about the future of LEADER, what we will do in this new programming period. A LEADER, you know, that has developed from a community initiative, what it was in the beginning, to an integral part of the rural development policy. And LEADER is a horizontal approach, which means it applies to everything. It is not a measure, but it shows how you can do something. Is mentioned as one of the priorities of the rural development policy in the community strategic guidelines. I think is quite clear. LEADER should contribute to improve competitiveness, land management, economic, social and overall development of rural areas. LEADER should build local partnership capacity, improve governance, and to mobilize the endogenous force and strength which we find in the regions. LEADER promotes public-private partnership, cooperation and innovation. As you know, it plays an essential role in connecting people and bringing different ideas and new approaches. We have got all national strategic plans in which member states have indicated their priorities and their strategy for the next 7 years. Member states have drawn up their national or sometimes regional rural development programs. In total, we have 94 programs. Axis 2, which is on land management and on landscape, gets a big share of the overall money which is spent under the rural development program. Then Axis 1, which is about competitiveness, gets the second biggest piece, and then Axis 3. And then Axis 4 is LEADER, which is modest as always, but can grow, I would say. LEADER is with 6%. If we look into the total expenditure, in this period we have 5.4 billion. After the national fund has added something and the private people have given in their 5 billion, you end up with 13.8 billion euro. So we talk a little bit sometimes about a leverage effect, which means if the European Union is giving €1 for a leader, it gets out €1.5 plus, which means €2.5. A lot of this money, of course, most of the money, 3/4, is spent on the local development strategies. Then there has been in the programs the possibility for member states to choose how wide they wanted the range of leader in the rural development measures. One approach is that member states open all their measures to leader. Then a second approach is to have a wider thematic application. And then you have a third, more limited approach. Leader is open to the measures under Axis 3. Leader obviously is applicable to the whole range of rural development measures, which means can operate under the different objectives and can serve the different measures we have. Leader works well when experience is available and lessons can be drawn from the past. The new rural development network structures will play an important role in a successful start of the mainstream leader for the whole rural development. There is a particular high value added of the leader approach in Axis 2. The aim of this conference, of course, is to look back to the good things we have done, also to the difficult things which had to be developed, but then to use this potential for the future and to bring it into the whole rural development approach, because we feel very much that it is needed there. Thank you very much for your attention.
May I now give the floor to Mr. George McDowell to speak about leader-like methods worldwide.
Now to rural development. Worldwide, in 15 minutes. First principle, development in stagnant places requires investment in or new knowledge of community assets that can be privately exploited for economic gain. We call that the development of territorial competitiveness. The assets of places which must be invested in are their human capital, plus their social capital, plus their natural capital, and the human created capital. So you can say, if you've seen one rural community, you've seen one rural community. Much knowledge of local assets is local. Some knowledge is external, but it must be combined with local knowledge to be useful. The attributes of things matter in the relationships between people. It is part of what defines the private sector from the public sector. Lest you think that that is not true, consider this relationship between the Canadian Maritime Authorities and U.S. Navy in the North Atlantic via radio in 1995. The U.S. fleet says a collision is imminent. Please alter your course. The Canadians, you change your course. U.S., we insist you change course or suffer the consequences. We say again, you change your course. We are the largest fleet in the U.S. Navy. We demand you change your course. We are a lighthouse. Your call. The attributes of many community assets require collective action, and that is governed by the characteristic of the thing about which people are relating. These starting principles imply bottom-up, networking, collective decision-making, partnerships of all kinds, capacity building, area-based, integrated multi-sector actions, and if it is for government intervention, upper-level governance that can empower unknown actions in the future by unknown, as yet unspecified agents in non-specified places. Standard agencies don't like that. Rural development experiences outside of EU leader. From Thailand, sometimes called the One Village, One Product strategy. It is a strategy based on handicrafts, and it combines bottom-up development and knowledge sharing with national and international marketing. And it's being adopted as one rural development strategy in Malaysia, in Sri Lanka, in India, and in the Philippines. How many of you have not heard of Grameen Bank? It's economic and social development from below through knowledge and risk sharing. Imagine this, 7.2 million borrowers, 97% women, and adapted or adopted in 100 countries since 1976. Canada is an example of what was an attempt at what I call real rural policy. It was governance at national level plus institutions to facilitate local regional development. It's a strong regionally based rural development. The major debates about issues and resources across programs take place at the bottom. They can shift between educational funds and health funds. And it includes, interestingly, 135 rural development officers to assist rural municipalities. I think they may be like your lag managers. Mexico, microregions and national governance support. Again, top-level governance, bottom-level facilitation and action. They establish strategic community centers with focus in the region for education, communication, and centers from which programs could be delivered that were region-wide. Costa Rica, the Nicoya Peninsula Development Agency. This is an interesting one because this was a group of people and organizations in that part of Costa Rica who were reacting against the agricultural policy. New governance that was responsive to all actors, a process to evaluate initiatives, projects and programs, financial management, sustaining institutions governed by principles of participation, transparency, and legality, all of the things we know. Now we come to America. There are 180 separate programs across 9 federal departments and 5 independent agencies. Virtually all of our programs are traditional, top-down. Very few are even regionally focused. The Economic Development Administration has a Strengthening America's Community initiative, which does build on local knowledge. And the Department of Labor has a workforce innovation in regional economic development, which also builds on local knowledge. The University of Wisconsin Extension Program. It employs community development professionals to initiate local action programs. They work as educators, as brokers, as grant writers. There are behind them 85 university faculty in economics, sociology, all across those subjects, with formal responsibility to support those field staff. Thank you very much.
Now I would like to give the floor first to Mr. Robert Lukesh and afterwards to Mr. Ben Schultz.
In the dawn of a new funding period, the expiring one still throws a light on us. 15 years of LEADER. We have this threefold message about the achievements of LEADER, the risks of mainstreaming, and the challenges ahead.
We will follow a 3-step approach, the 7 strategic principles of LEADER, together with the 7 operational principles. And this will lead us to the 7 drivers of success of LEADER, which could be observed on 3 levels: on the local value-added level, on the social capital enrichment level, and on the spreading out of LEADER into other programs.
We can see a strong focus on local identities and belonging. The second aspect is about empowering people. It is also giving an organizational framework. It's about encouraging entrepreneurship. It also addresses the inclusive and balanced interaction through ethical and technical principles. It uses achievements from the business world and transposes them into the territorial context.
Let's go ahead and look at the 7 drivers of success. And the first is, of course, the micro-regional scale. Local partnerships have been small enough to address the identity and to know well what the region needs. they are big enough to bundle the forces in place and in the regions.
LEADER has helped in finding some common ground in bringing the whole region together. It has helped the local authorities in getting more involved. Local, private and voluntary organizations have gained more experience with project development and are better prepared in developing new projects.
The second aspect will be the valuation of local skills and knowledge. We brought in almost forgotten knowledge based and know-how and valued them and also gave them opportunity to spread out.
In many projects there are actions that require new skills, and often the newcomers in rural areas are ready to obtain these skills.
Next thing will be the low threshold and demand-oriented funding, which definitely brought in new actors. LEADER has definitely been seed money.
The results of completed projects within the LEADER Plus program cannot be counted only in terms of money and events. Thanks to them, the number of partners who want to be actively involved started to increase.
The strength of the independent local partnership has been combining the bottom-up with a top-down approach, basically, which leads to multi-level governance in the regions.
Membership of the LAG is very numerous, and there is a noticeable majority presence of private actors, which shows the high level of mobilization which the group has given rise to among local society.
The quest for linkages and synergies is to be seen on many levels, between sectors, but also between topics, linking, for instance, agriculture and tourism, linking handcrafts and agriculture maybe, and therefore regional branding brought together these different linkages.
The dynamic of this network of local intervention offices is stronger as these offices are closer to the population, mainly in their active dimension.
The thrust of innovation is then a clear sign, not only meaning incremental innovation, but something new in the region.
Use LEADER Plus as a tool to achieve your local goals. Innovation groups are excellent for focusing partners of all backgrounds on common goals.
The European dimension, which comprises actually two aspects. The one, of course, is the one of networking, the outward orientation of local partnerships to see, well, they are not unique or they are not alone with their problems. They will find partners everywhere. And the second part will be, of course, the autonomy, leading then into organizational learning.
The LAG started with mutual visits to test cooperation possibilities with other LAGs in neighboring countries. We are today networking with 15 LAG and participating in 4 different cooperation projects.
So we are at the local value added and the social capital enrichment and spreading out.
A major concern of the LEADER initiative is, of course, agricultural and rural development policy. It has contributed to the competitiveness of agricultural farms, forest enterprises and the food supply chain by emphasizing the notion of value-added clusters, emphasis on quality and links between consumers and producers, as well as to link their activities with non-farm activities in the area. Many LAGs operate near or within protected areas and create double dividend by putting value on local products and raising the acceptance of nature protection among the citizens there.
The interest in an environmental investment is not motivated just by the midterm money saving in respect to the law or the access to a new market, but also by the improvement of the image of the enterprise itself towards its partners and even the inhabitants of the territory.
Concerning the rural diversification, it can be coined as the core competency of LEADER. It contributes with a large number of successful micro-enterprise startups which have a high survival rate over time.
It appears significant that enough free space and time are granted to LEADER Plus action areas to define and adapt their own development strategy. The LEADER Plus approach should remain diverse in order to avoid the question in action group meetings about what type of projects can be aided, instead of dealing with the question, what does the LEADER Plus region need urgently?
Similar things can be said about its focus on quality of life, as it acts close to the population, and it has done a lot in terms of proximity services, local mobility in the health sector, and education, of course.
Our priority theme, improving the quality of life in rural areas, has been interpreted in a very holistic way. Quality of life means also strengthening social integration and sustainability in its economic, ecological, and social dimension.
Although LEADER is not a social program, its solution-oriented focus contributes to inclusive practices.
Business enterprises and non-profit organizations see it as long-term benefit in the employees come from different social groups. The support of women, those in disadvantaged situations, Roma people and minorities is foreseen.
Social capital enrichment by the 5D, starting with dignity. LEADER is one of the rare programs which address people not as objects or just receivers of funding, but as subjects to shaping their own destiny. LEADER is also about distinction. It regards rural areas as a reservoir of distinctiveness, and turning uniqueness into competitive advantage is one of the major concerns in a globalized economy. It's also about dialogue. It brings people together to produce a kind of fusion value.
Through the cooperation of village groups to set up associations, local women organizations, etc., local authorities start to consult those partners to set up the strategy for development of local tourism, culture, and annual budgets for particular communities and whole districts.
Thus, LEADER is also about local democracy, because the partnership and the processes which are embedded in and around this partnership are important